Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Marketer of the Day podcast. We are here with many time return guests and my business partner, Lance Tamashiro from TamashiroMarketing.com, from LanceTamashiro.com. We are going to talk about how to scale in multiple ways, how to scale as far as building a bigger business, how to scale as far as getting people to work for you and managing all that, but also thinking bigger and playing a bigger game. So Lance, glad to be talking to you.
Oh man, I'm so glad to be here. And, especially this whole idea of scaling, whatever that means for you. And, what we're talking about is actually like how to grow bigger, how to amplify the things that are working for you. And I think that, we fell into this trap. We got caught in this area. We see a lot of other business owners where you build something or you have a product. Or you have a certain client base, and it gets to the point where you're capped, right? And no matter what you do with what you've built, it can't get bigger, either for bandwidth, meaning the amount of clients you can service, or whether that means resources, the amount of server space that you have, or the different things like that, where there's just so many hours in a day that you hit this point. And honestly, that's something that I think, especially when people are building a business, whether that's online, which is where we sort of live and play more than anywhere else, or offline, the problem is the same. People think in their head, like, I can just sell a zillion of these things, whatever your widget is, and I can make millions and millions and millions of dollars. And the truth is you can, but what most people forget is sort of setting the foundation so that they can actually scale to that. So even where, the majority of our products are digital products, and if we sold, let's just say 50,000 widgets a month, we could make millions and millions and millions of dollars a month. But with the infrastructure that we built, we couldn't do all of the customer support. We couldn't handle all of the traffic. I mean, there's a lot of logistics stuff that we had to adjust for in order to be able to handle that kind of stuff. And so if you don't sort of start thinking now, regardless of what size you're at, I can promise you that you've got an inherent ceiling built into what you have made, where in theory, you can sell thousands and thousands and thousands of products, but in practice, you can't get there because you haven't thought about how that is going to scale for you.
And how do you reconcile that thinking? Because I kind of hear two parts of this, right? There's, build things right so that way you can handle the bandwidth. That way you can sell enough copies or deal with enough clients to get it done. But what do you say to people that maybe overplan or overcomplicate, overarchitect, and they're thinking 10 years in the future, but they're not thinking 10 days into the future?
And that's an amazing point. And I'm glad that you brought that up, because what I don't want people to hear is, oh my gosh, I can't make $5,000 this month because now I need to go back to square one and start like re-architect everything, right? Like, does this mean I have to have a team? Does this, oh my gosh, like, and I don't want people to hear that. And what I would rather have people do is hit a ceiling and then understand how to adjust so they can move that ceiling higher, rather than to worry about hitting the ceiling, if that makes sense. So whatever you're at right now, there is room for you to grow. You haven't hit your what we're talking about ceiling yet. You just haven't. There's ways to become more efficient, whether you're one person working alone or you're a team of 100. So start there and just understand that there are limits to where you're going to go. The problem that our business ran into was that you and I did everything on our own, right? We took this mindset of, if I don't write the email won't be good enough. If I don't build the website won't be good enough. If I don't do the customer support won't be good enough. And what ended up happening was we hit a ceiling early on, and we recognized it. And it was kind of one of those things where it was like, well, the money's good, it's coming in, so let's just ignore that, right? Let's just ignore the ceiling, and hopefully someday magically it will just take care of itself. And what we have now realized over the last, I don't know, 3 years or so, is that raising that ceiling is a very simple process as far as increasing bandwidth, increasing those tasks, freeing us to do things that we've always thought about that have never done by simply adding employees. And the reason why I believe we resisted hiring employees early on was twofold. The first is that whole mindset that I was just describing, that nobody can do it better than us, and if we don't do it, it won't get done, and it'll be more work to teach somebody else to do it than for me to just go and do it myself. First of all, along those lines, is that as a business owner, I think the first hardest hurdle to overcome that mindset for us was to let go of our ego and just try somebody else doing it. And I think that what we found out through going, okay, if I want my ceiling to increase, it's either keep my ego and my like attachment to nobody can do it better than me, which I think is what we all feel as business owners, because we learned it and it was so hard for us to learn it. How could somebody else learn it the way that I do it? But it became a conscious thought for us, is either I can hang on to my ego or I can raise the ceiling. So if you don't want to raise the ceiling, hang on to that mindset. But I would challenge everybody to try it the way that I'm going to describe in a little bit, and just cut that ego down a little bit and see if you can raise your ceiling a little bit. The second sort of thing that had to happen for our mindset to shift was that we had to let go of, well, it took me so long to learn how to fill in the blank, right? Make a website, write sales copy, write emails, whatever, it doesn't matter what it is. But what we found out was training. And so what came with that was, I can't train somebody to do what took me a year or 10 hours of a course to do in less time. And what we found out was, if we just grab a screen capture tool like Loom or Snagit or Camtasia or whatever's built into your computer, that if we made tasks small, recorded ourselves doing what we were doing, and not in huge chunks, like not hours video that would be a training course, but like, here's me installing WordPress. Here's me writing an email, and sort of the thought process that I go to. It became more helpful to us as far as understanding what we were doing. But then we could take those short, and I'm talking short, 3 to 7 minute videos, and handing them off to an employee and saying, here's me doing it. Now you go try it, and just, there's no right or wrong. Just try it and then let me see what you come back with. All of a sudden, we were like, oh my gosh, not only do they do it adequately, but they do it better, and it frees me to do something else. And I only had to create that video once, and now I can reuse that as a training video for when somebody does an email, when somebody it makes an attempt at setting up a website. It's something I no longer have to do. So that's sort of the mindset problem that we bumped up against. The second thing that we bumped up against was the whole idea of, oh my gosh, how am I going to pay somebody, right? Like, so I've got this ceiling, and if I'm happy and comfortable, let's just use a number like I'm making $5,000 a month, or I'm making 10 grand a month. Well, I'm comfortable with that. Why would I want, if I hire somebody, and let's just say it costs me $1,000 a month to hire somebody. I hire somebody. Well, now my income just dropped by $1,000. Nope. I'd rather just, I'm back into problem one, right? It's back into my ego. Well, why would I decrease my salary for $1,000 to have somebody that won't do it as good as me, or that I have to train? Well, see step one, right? Like, go back to what we just discussed about ego and about how to train people. And so those are the two things you're going to get that if you're that you're going to come up against. My ego, and I don't want to decrease my, I'm happy with my ceiling, because why would I want to take a pay cut? What I can promise you is they both come down to the same problem, right? They're ego problems. And what you're going to find out is, if you take that short-term pay cut, and we're going to talk about strategies on how you don't have to take a short-term pay cut, but if you can get over yourself enough to go, I'm going to invest $1,000 to have somebody do stuff for me that are money-making activities, you will find that your ceiling raises, and that you actually make that money back and then some, not in a long term, but in a very short term way. So I guess acknowledge that there's these two things that you're coming up against that are preventing you from building your business bigger and achieving sort of the growth that you're actually looking for.
There's so many good things that we got to so far. Two things stand out for me. One is that whole idea of having to do it all ourselves. And I'm thinking about some mentors we had early on who were talking a lot about branding, right? Like, you have to brand yourself. And that means that you have to write all your web pages and write your emails. And as you were explaining that, I was thinking, well, if I'm on Oprah's email list, if I'm on Tony Robbins' email list, I don't believe that Oprah is writing her emails, and Oprah might have trained her email person to write the emails kind of sort of in the style as Oprah. But if Oprah, the billionaire, was spending her time writing the perfect email, I'd kind of think less of Oprah, right? And I liked how you said, like, it does not have to be all or nothing. You can, you're hitting that ceiling by doing all these dumb tasks, right? These tasks that someone else could do, and someone else could pass as you, or someone else could do it close enough to you. You're hitting the ceiling because of the ego, and you don't have to throw away your entire ego. You can just dial down the ego 10%, and then maybe take a deep dive and examine some of these things that maybe the resistance to hiring employees. Sure, money could be a factor, but maybe it's not the only factor. Maybe it's only factor one of four. And something that's hiding in the deep, dark corners is that you feel a sense of that, since you suffered for 10 years figuring this out, that someone else would also have to suffer for 10 years to figure out the way that you do it exactly. No, you can just compress those years into minutes and just say, they don't need to know the whole history lesson. They don't need to know all the trial and error that you went through. All they have to know is, here's the video on my screen. Here's some screen capture. Here's how to install WordPress. Click this, click that, ignore the rest. And it seems like there's kind of a need to enjoy teaching, right? Like, you think of, like, when you taught your kids how to tie their shoes, or you taught your son how to mow the lawn, like, you get some kind of enjoyment in passing things along. And then maybe we can we can kind of tap into that. And I'm hearing a lot from you also that like it's kind of important to have fun, right? It's important to not just go through the motions and not just have these kind of same old diminishing returns. And also from knowing you, so many times you like to just kind of jump in with not without a plan, but with a minimal plan. Jump in and say, well, I know that there will be these obstacles coming up, but until we come across these real big things to deal with, we'll deal with them at that time. And so, yeah, a lot to think about, but we need to let go of our ego at least somewhat in order to raise the ceiling somewhat. But like we said, there's that issue of, I really, really want to hire someone, but I don't, there's so many unknowns. I don't know how much I'll pay them. I don't know if this will just be, it's like getting a new bill, right? It's like, well, I already have to pay my electricity bill and my mortgage bill. Now I'm getting an extra bill of hiring someone. How do we overcome that problem?
So I think like the way that we have sort of scaled and built this is to, well, here's the mindset I want you to have as far as this goes. And then we're going to talk practically about how to achieve this faster than I'm going to explain. But the one thing that we always do now when we bring somebody else new on is the thought in our head is, whatever it is that this person does, we're going to commit for 3 to 6 months to hiring them. So minimum 3 months, at least 3 months. It shouldn't take that long, but if you can commit to 3 to 6 months of keeping them on, that's the first step, is make the commitment to have them on. The second thing is we never bring somebody on without some idea of how they can become self-sustaining within that time period. Okay, so what I mean is, if I'm going to hire somebody new into our company, let's say for $1,000 a month, I'm going to commit to, we're going to try them and keep them for 3 months. Okay, so I know in my head already, for using round numbers, we're going to hire them for $3,000. In 3 months, they need to be making a minimum of $1,000 per month that I can literally see before. I mean, that's the goal. If they're not doing that, then I failed as my job as a business owner. Okay, and so like, and one of the things that I do is in our sort of bookkeeping e-commerce software is I literally have one bucket where we can see what this specific person paying for themselves or not. Like there's a product and a service that person provides. Is it paying for them or not? So I can track along and see if they're doing that. So that might sound all great, right? You might be a brand new business owner. You're not making any money now, or you're making just enough to cover your expenses. And now Lance is throwing you a new bill for $1,000 a month, and you're saying, okay, I can't do that. I would argue that you can, and here's how. First is get something in mind that could make the bare minimum. So what I did with my first employee was I had a course on how to make money on Etsy selling print-on-demand products. It was something I had, and I know that everybody listening, if you've been trying to build a business at all for any amount of time, you've got a whole folder, or I guess that's what they're called now, directory on your computer that is filled with courses and trainings and stuff that you've bought. If you're the kind of person that hasn't bought something yet, you probably have a whole bunch of things bookmarked inside of your YouTube account or inside of your Chrome or Safari or web browser that you've been like, oh, this is a good business idea. Oh, here's a bunch of videos I watched. And if you don't even have them bookmarked, go look in your history. YouTube keeps a whole history of all of the videos you've watched. Your browser keeps a whole history of all of the websites that you visited. Spend not more than an hour and go through and go like, oh, this is something that interests me. Oh, I watched a bunch of videos on this, and then bookmark them, like keep a log of them. Like I said, I had a course that I had bought years ago on how to um, make money selling products on Etsy. And so what I did was I said, okay, if I go and hire somebody on to just do an Etsy store, how many products do I need to sell in order to make the person pay for themselves? And it turns out you don't have to sell a whole lot. If you can make $15 or $20 a product, you're only talking about selling one product a day in order to make somebody pay for themselves. One product a day in order to make somebody pay for themselves. So what did I do? I said, okay, this course says it's possible. I looked on Etsy and said, oh my gosh, people are selling way more than one product a day. Can I get to one product a day in 3 months? I believe that I can. I can see all these people that do. I have a training course. So I hired somebody and I said, go through the training course, set me up an Etsy store. Here's sort of the niche I want to be in. I don't care if you sell shirts. I don't care if you sell mugs. I don't care what you sell. Set me up an Etsy store and then go and look at all of the competitors, like act as if you're buying something and make me those products. Don't make it look exactly like those, but use the same phrases, use the same words, use similar designs and make me a store. Your job every day is to post one new product and is to handle fulfillment, if there is any. And wow, in less than a month, the person was paying for themselves. And so there's all kinds of things if you'll commit to anything that you've started that isn't finished. You started it because you thought it would make money. And I think this brings me to sort of the second point in hiring people is when we hire people, we now think of it as, can they be a business unit, a profit center on their own? Like, I have no desire to run an Etsy store and to take care of orders and doing all of the stuff that's involved. I just don't. But I like having the money come in from it. And so I hire this person to run that. I hire this person to implement and run this. So I think what happens when we hire people is we think in terms of small tasks, right? Like checking my email, writing, making me a website, doing this. What I challenge you to do is think bigger in terms of, can you build me a whole standalone business on its own, using Amazon, using Etsy, using Fiverr, using whatever that already exists. And the reason why I mention Amazon, Etsy, and Fiverr is they already have buyers looking for things and spending money on things. So you don't need a website. You don't need payment processing. You don't need anything but an idea. And guess what? If you don't have an idea, spend not more than an hour looking on either of those 3 sites, just pick one, and seeing what sells that. I guess you don't even have to be interested in it, right? Like, you don't even have to be interested in the product. Just find something that sells that you go, oh, I can duplicate that. And then hire somebody to duplicate that and let it run. And the reason why I say 3 months is because my experience has been every time we've done it and given ourselves 3 months, they're way profitable. But by that time, and usually they're at least at break even, if not profitable, within the first month, if I go with an idea. And if I take my ego out of it and say, no, just do this. Build me an Etsy store. I don't care what you sell. I want to be in this general niche. Here's some example shops. Go. And then check in every week and see how it's going. And I've never not been impressed with the results. And what happens is that problem that we just talked about of our decreasing our ego so we can increase our ceiling, your ego starts decreasing really fast because you go, oh my gosh, I didn't have to do this. How can, the problem becomes not hiring too many people, right? Because you just want to go, well, that worked. I want to do it again. I want to hire somebody here. I want to build this and build this. And what you end up with is this whole team of people that just do things, and you get to be the CEO you've always dreamed about and go, Etsy store numbers look good today. The emails went out and that looks good today. And build me a website and just see what it looks like. And then I'll tell you where to tweak it. And you really become this, you're almost removed from the business other than, I think what we do most of now with our team members is we field questions, right? We know when they're working, they'll ask us a question we use Slack. They'll ask us a question. You can use Skype, which is free. You can use whatever. We just happen to use Slack. I don't even know why we moved to Slack, but we did. And we use that to communicate with everybody, and they just ask us questions, we answer, and things get done. And it's just a way nicer experience as a business owner to not worry about the details of the business, but more just looking at it going, wow, that's cool. We built this. That's amazing. And so I think that if you'll embrace sort of that idea of just have them build a whole business unit for you, you'll get a lot farther.
I'm really liking these ideas. These ideas of, first of all, 90 days, as long as you check in, seems to be the magic number, because if we say we'll try them out for 6 months or a year, who even knows what things will be like then, if you will get distracted. And then if we're too impatient, if we say they better make money in a week or two, sometimes it takes that amount of time for things to build up. And as you were explaining some of these things, my mind was going crazy thinking in terms of, well, some of these platforms like Fiverr, you can't sell off your account. But I think with some of them, some of the e-commerce stores, you can, or you can use some of these platforms as a traffic source and build a business that runs itself. Someone's running it, it's making money, and you could potentially just sell off that little side business and then repeat the process, because that's very attractive to a buyer, right? There's no work involved. It's just churning it out. And one thing that I thought was quite helpful was that idea of, well, two things. One was seeing if something can be duplicated, right? It doesn't even need to be something you're interested in, but you look on that Etsy store, you see, are there Etsy stores that are selling a lot? Is the inventory something I can duplicate? Just look in those terms. Is this something that I can duplicate? And what was also helpful was you breaking it down into number of copies sold per day, and then how many months to get there, because it's easy to have this big pie in the sky goal, right? Say, oh, $5,000 a month sounds great. But what if the goal was, first of all, maybe smaller because it's a few months out of the gate? Maybe you said $500 a month, $100 a month, and then how many mugs would you have to sell per month? Even if the answer is 10 or 20, if it's one a day, now that's something that you can achieve that goal. Now that's something where you can kind of keep it in your head and remind yourself it's just the simple thing. It's not all these moving parts. And then, so I like how you kind of went with some of those things. And what I kept on kind of hearing in the subtext there is how important it is for everyone listening to break the cycle, to break out of the loop, because you were explaining how maybe people have the magic folder of all the products, tons of bookmarks, this huge YouTube history, and it's really easy to get just stuck in that cycle of, well, I'm excited about an idea, let me do some research, I got distracted, now it's time to go and do the other excitement of the idea. And it makes you think about how, if people are overweight or they quit smoking and then they go and suddenly things are bad enough for them to lose the weight or quit smoking, but they get stressed out about the diet or about what smoking is doing to them, and they go back to smoking or they go back to eating. And we know some people, and we sympathize, who are just stuck in the middle, right? They were so excited when they launched into their business. They had all these hopes and dreams. They wanted to be that CEO who just steers the ship. But then when they got stuck in the nitty gritty, they were just jumping from shiny object to shiny object and putting in just enough money every month to justify it, but not really making the money back. And I think this is the chance for many people to finally break the cycle and just stop spinning your wheels and stop doing the same old stuff every month. And I think that the key in there is how you said, have them build a standalone business. That way they are their own profit center. That way in the accounting, it's easy to justify them. And it's not as scary for them. They're not really getting their hooks into you and your business right away, right? If it does not work out with that new employee after a couple of months, you can fire them and you still have that Etsy store or that website that they built, and they don't necessarily have access to all the accounts and all the passwords at least right away. But one thing that really interested me about your philosophy here with hiring is how there's like this concept of leftover hours, right? Is that you hire someone and you have them just work on this project and just do something where it doesn't touch any other parts of your business. It's this new kind of fun side project experiment where you don't have to even be involved. You just collect the money. But you and I have had these conversations where you pay someone X number of dollars and maybe they give you like 2X the money or X times like plus 20%. And so they're making money, but then this project they have is not taking up all 40 hours out of the week. And now there's time for maybe the less important things or some of like the cleanup or the dreams we've always had. So can you tell us about that, about like what we've done or about what you want to do in the future as far as using these free hours that we have now obtained?
Yeah, so what you're referring to, and I'm just going to use sort of the Etsy store example, right? Like we kind of walked through that if somebody could sell one product a day on Etsy, they could pay for themselves, essentially, right? And I mean, if you sell higher price stuff, obviously it would be less than that. But let's stick with the business model is you have an Etsy store. It's print on demand, so you don't have any other cost other than Etsy. When the order comes in, you get the money, you order the thing and have it drop shipped out to them. Now, obviously that's going to take some time to build up unless they just hit a home run with one product right out the bat, which I hope they do for you. And it is possible given the way that we walk through that. But let's say it takes some time to build up, right? And I also mentioned we'll just have them post one new product a day. Well, once the store's set up, posting one new product a day does not take 48 hours a day, right? If they're slow, it's going to take them 1 hour to make something good and get the listing right and make it look all nice. But let's even say it takes them 3 hours at the beginning because they're just getting used to it and they're filling it out. That means you still have 5 hours left in a day because you know that something like an Etsy store or an Amazon store, it's going to take time to get some traction. So it's important to be adding new products, finding out what works, finding all of these things, but that's not going to take more than, let's just say 3 hours a day, right? If it takes them a very long time. And eventually that just starts building, right? Like more stuff, more sales. So you're going to snowball in that time, but it takes them 3 hours a day to do it. Well, now you have 5 hours a day where they're not productive or doing anything. That's just free time, right? They've already covered their expense by adding the new product to the Etsy store, answering the messages that come in, and fulfilling the products. I mean, so the rest of the time's free. So what do you do with the free time? Well, you can have them do the administrative tasks. Like our employees have access to our emails. They have access to our Facebook accounts. They have access to all kinds of things because we trust them and we've worked with them. And maybe you're not to that point yet. Well, what could you have them do? Well, you could have them go through another training course that you've got on your hard drive. You can have them create a second Etsy store. You can have them move your Etsy products and build them on Amazon. You can you can literally, now they're free in the clear, right? They've already covered themselves in that 3 hours a day. Now all of that other stuff is open for you to do whatever you want. And I know, like, Robert, you've got this idea, not to give away all of your ideas, but you've got an idea where you want to start selling a whole line of Kindle books that you do not want to write, research, or do yourself. Well, guess what? There's training courses on how to write, research, and do a Kindle book called like bookformula.com, where you could just hand them the training and say, not make a whole line of books, but just say, hey, I'm interested in making a coloring book for a kid. Will you go through this training with the idea that I want to make a coloring book for a kid, and go through it and come. I know the training is 10 hours long, but you only need to go through the first 5 hours of it, because that gets you through the part I want to see. Go through this first 5 hours of the training, apply what you learned to making me a coloring book, and come back to me in 4 days and show me what you've got. Do your other task, but also do this. Well, if you got a book back in less than a week that was good enough, well, you get it back and you're like, I don't like this. Get me different images to color. Get me different this. I don't like, instead of the teddy bear, I want a koala bear. And you just edit that as they go. Well, guess what? In a week, you have a kid's coloring book that you can post on Amazon. And imagine if now every week you have 5 new products going up in your Etsy store. You have 1 new book going up on Amazon and Kindle, both, coloring book for an iPad on Kindle and physical book going out, because what's the extra work in that? It's checking a box. Pretty soon, every week, you've got 5 new e-commerce products, 1 new Kindle book going out, whether it's whatever niche you want, or whether you want to try 10 different niches. It doesn't matter, but all of a sudden, can you imagine the traction that you could have, and literally you do nothing but approve products and say, oh yeah, cool, I got this new book, I like it. Go ahead and watch the other 5 hours now and post it for me. You literally don't have to do anything but just be the CEO. And guess what? That scales. Now, how do you scale from there? Well, once you have 1 person making money doing those 2 tasks, do you know how you could potentially double what you're making? Hire another person to do those same 2 things, right? Like, I mean, there's a million books on Amazon. There's a million products and niches on Etsy that make money. You could literally get 1 new person. You already know the training because you got the course on Etsy, you got the course on Kindle books. Now you just hire a new person and say, do this the exact same way. And how many times would you do that if you proved that a person could be profitable in 3 months? You would do it every day, right? Like, or as much as your cash flow would allow you to do. But you would for sure do it once every 3 months, or once somebody got profitable. And now you've got it built in, where if you lose an employee, big deal, because all the employees know how to do all of those things. The only thing that changed was the niche. And it was just made up out of thin air anyway, because you spent an hour on Amazon or Etsy going, I like kids coloring books. I want to try that. I like whatever, day planners. I like that. I like mugs that talk about dad jokes. I mean, it doesn't matter, because you can just plug them all in now. And that's just with 2 business ideas, right? I mean, people listening to this have way more than I can ever think of, but you can now just scale at the way that you want. That's not causing more work for you, the CEO or business owner.
And it seems like even the way that you're explaining this, you don't slow the scaling down, which I mean, for some of us, that's a big problem. Or we can sometimes be stubborn and not want to change up our lifestyle at all and say, well, I like things the way they are. I like, getting my coffee and checking my email in the morning. But one thing you said in there that was really helpful was, why not just do this every 3 months? Every 3 months, say, here's this person, go and build this Etsy store, here's a course. And that's also something that you don't hear a lot of people say. People don't say, hire a person and go and send them off to school, go buy a course for them and have them go through it. They say to make all kinds of procedures, and they say to make a whole line of videos basically duplicating someone else's course. The work has already been done.
Right. And I think that was the biggest breakthrough for us. I mean, every person that we found a course that basically proves the skills that we want somebody to have for our business now. So we have a course that teaches somebody how to set up a website, how to do some social media stuff, just a bunch of stuff that we think are important skills. And so when we hire people now, that's the first thing that they do is that course. Why? Because it builds us an asset. It makes them learn all this. We don't need to do this whole hiring process because we have a course that teaches them enough of the skills that we'd almost prefer they don't know how to do anything because we want it done this way. So they go through, they learn how to set up a website, they learn how to do some social media stuff, all of that. And we don't have to train them. We know everybody gets trained the same way starting off, right? We know that we can just look at the end product and know if they did it the way that we wanted them to or not. And so I think don't get caught up in, I have to have somebody that knows how to do this and knows how to do that and knows how to do anything. No, you don't. You just need somebody that can watch a course that you've already purchased and do that. So if you want to do books, find a course like bookformula.com that teaches somebody how to research, write, and do a book and send somebody there. So all you have to do is just find a body and send them through that course. If you want to make an Etsy store, find a course that sells how to set up and make an Etsy store and put everybody through there. You'll know in 3 days whether or not they can do it because you'll either have a course, you'll either have an Etsy store or you won't. And if you won't, that's the wrong person. or send me a coloring book for a kid. You'll either have it or you won't. But what I can promise you is this, and we all suffer from this as business owners. You will not sit down, go through a 10-hour course and implement it every day. You just won't. I mean, there's 1% of you out there that will. And then my question is, why? It's profitable if you're in the 1% that goes, I have an Etsy store and it's already great and it's profitable. Well, guess what? Double your income by hiring somebody else to duplicate what you did. You didn't figure it out on your own. You learned it from a course or from YouTube videos or from blog posts. So collect those things, hire somebody, and have them go through it. So there's no argument either way. If you're successful doing what you're successful doing, duplicate yourself. Imagine if you already have a successful Etsy store and you hired somebody to set up a new one. You like doing it for whatever reason. You like doing it, getting your coffee, sitting down and managing your Etsy store every day. Continue doing it. Hire somebody to make you a new one. And guess what happens? After you hire somebody and they prove they can do it, you can then turn them over to the one that you're doing. And guess what you have to do in the morning now? Sit down and drink coffee and do nothing. I don't care who you are or how much you claim you like it. You'll like it a whole lot more when all you do is check the bank account. And so there's really no argument whether you're in the 1% that will follow through or the 99% of us that won't. It just makes sense to duplicate and get rid of it for yourself, because I promise you'll enjoy drinking your your coffee and looking at the bank account rather than drinking your coffee and answering customer support and fulfilling orders and all of these things you say you like, you'll like doing that a whole lot more.
And putting out fires, right? I mean, you could make that Etsy store, but do you really want to do that every day for the rest of your life? Is that really sustainable? And what's great about this, the way that I hear you thinking, or the way that you're explaining this, it's in very, like, I don't know, like almost like doodling visual terms. It's like, well, you can have your Etsy store, but then also they create a second Etsy store and then they can take it over, or they make an Etsy store and then now they're making money. Have them make a second Etsy store and then hire another person to make their own Etsy store. And then now people are interchangeable. And I think that we could all do with just maybe thinking in more of these outside the box terms, or more kind of like how everything's cloud-based now, right? Like it used to be, you'd have to like have a physical computer and like a physical machine. But now if you want to create something, it's all in thin air, right? Airbnb, Uber, Amazon, it's all just a matter of people set things up and move the pieces around, and there's nothing physical real anymore. And also the other thing that I'm kind of along those lines too that I'm getting from you is that the tools themselves do not matter that much. And this is something that held us back for so long. We said, well, do we use Slack or do we use that? And like, I mean, we know people that use Facebook Messenger to talk to their employees. And if they need to do a group chat, they just do a group in Facebook and text message. And then even as far as managing the tasks, I know someone that uses Google Calendar, and guess what? Shared Google Calendar. If there's a new thing that needs to be done, just drop it as an appointment and then, mark it as assigned or mark it with a color for someone. Like it seems like the tools themselves do not matter. What does matter is that you use it, that you have some kind of a strategy that involves, where am I going? How soon do I want to get there? Am I going to recurring, or how often will I recurringly, daily or weekly check up on what's happening? What are the roadblocks? What are the questions that my employee needs to ask me? Do I need to say, make more of this, less of that? And then there's also seems to be some amount of just like giving things time to grow. And like, for example, you said like make one mug on Etsy per day, not day one, make 50 mugs. Because then what if you don't like the way that they made 50 mugs? Now they've made 50 mugs incorrectly, and you're just posting a lot of things. You don't know, like there's no time for people to find it and buy it and see what sells. So that's what I'm hearing from you as well, is that scaling does not always mean speed, right? You can scale slowly, or you can scale just the right amount for what you can handle. And then there's also that matter of, well, say you hire that person and you send them through a course, and maybe the course just sucks, or maybe the course is not what you're looking for, or maybe the person that you're hiring is not a good fit for that. There's so many unknowns, and sometimes we just have to get the train rolling and then check in a day and check in a day and see how things are going. And even it doesn't have to just stop at one, right? It doesn't have to be just one Etsy store, or you can hire someone to learn Kindle books and they get good at that. But then if you want to do the children's books specifically, maybe you find a course for that, and then it just adds to their knowledge. So there's just a few, I guess, nuances or kind of mindsets to have as far as easing into it. And it does not have to be a huge fire hose. And it does not have to be just suddenly one day you wake up and your life is different. Maybe you do less and less work and you check the bank account more and more. And that's just a gradual goal that you aspire to. And we want everyone out there to duplicate themselves, to do less of being in their own business. And as we're in our final few minutes here, Lance, as we're wrapping up, winding down, I want to know two things. First of all, what do you say to someone who is afraid of the mega freight train? If they're hiring people and people are working on projects, that can get sort of scary, right? With money coming in, money going out. So what do you have to say about that kind of approaching chaos concept? And is there anything that you wish you'd known months or years ago going into all this hiring process?
Yeah. So first of all, with the freight train sort of analogy. Um, that's why I really encourage you to go slow, even as far as like an Etsy store, and why I say commit to 3 to 6 months, like commit to the business model for 3 to 6 months, because because you don't know what you don't know. And I mean, that's the reality of it. And that's why when you're scaling like this, it's like you said, don't drink from the fire hose. Like, have them set up the store, check it. Have them add a product, check it. Have them, do one thing a day so that you can gradually build the snowball, right? Don't try to start with like the snowball. No, you start with like one little piece of snow and you roll it and you roll it and you roll it. And that way you won't get caught in too much chaos. And also, what was the second thing?
What did you wish you'd known going in?
What I wish I would have known, is, first of all, that it was me stopping my business from growing. And that as I look back over 10 years, almost 11 years now, I have been the problem that have stopped me from growing and getting the things done. And it was over planning. In so many ways. Like, I didn't want to hire somebody because I didn't know how to communicate with them. I didn't know how to have the task with them. I didn't know how all of these things, right? That what software should I use? What this, what that, what happens if? The truth is none of that matters. Like, you'll figure it out. And that's why I even hesitate to mention that we use Slack, because somebody out there is going, but I use Skype. Oh my gosh, now I got to go learn Slack. No, you can use your phone with text messaging. Whatever you're currently using is good enough. Like, and you'll learn going in, you'll make your own system. So you mentioned somebody likes using Google Calendar. That's a great solution if that's the solution you use. If you use another task manager, that's a great solution if you use it. And the truth is that for our employees now, we could do it through email. It's whatever you're comfortable using, especially with your first employee. Make them fit into what you currently have. And you'll find your better tools or better ways, but the tool is not important. So for and I'm just going to throw this out there so you can sort of see how we've sort of developed this and grown, is our employees basically have they basically have one requirement every day. And that only requirement is at the start of the workday, they have to send us a message that says, basically, good morning, I'm starting work now, and to let us know if they have any problems or questions. Half the time, I never even respond to it, but every morning, like clockwork, at 8 o'clock in the morning, I get a message from all the employees that say, I'm here and I'm starting work. That's the only requirement that we have for the workday. Other than that, they're expected to look at their tasks and complete them. And to be honest, I don't check all that often if they've completed them, because I did it first and I just trust them now. I assume that their tasks are getting done. I might go look now once every 3 weeks and see if there's any tasks that haven't been done. But you'll get to the point where I went from literally checking every hour to see if their hourly task had gotten done to just checking whenever I think about it and going, okay, because I've built a trust with them, and you will too. And so what I would say is, whatever you're comfortable using now, whether it's email, Skype, text messaging, Slack, Google account, whatever it is, just start with, I expect you to contact me every morning and tell me, and maybe you start with, and then I expect an email at the end of the day saying this is what got accomplished, so you can go look at it. But you'll develop a sort of trust in them. And think about any day job that you've had. I mean, that's sort of how it goes, right? At the beginning, they kind of micromanage you a little bit and make sure you don't have any questions and make sure you're on the right track until you get to the point where you might only see your boss once a week or once a month or whatever. The same will happen for you.
I love it. Treat it like all the jobs where you've had an employee, only now it's the roles are reversed. Have them trust you, and I like that a lot. Have them use what you're currently using, so that way it's not so much of a shock. That way you're not trying to figure things out while they are, and that way you don't have this made up obstacle of I have to have this tool and I have to do it in the certain way. And that even relates back to almost near the beginning of our conversation where we asked, well, if I can do this job so well, am I going to spend more time explaining someone else how to do it versus me just doing it? The first time maybe, right? The first couple of weeks, there might be some of those awkward growing pains where you say, well, I could click, but instead, let me record the video, let me go slow, and then they will understand it, and maybe they'll do it not quite right the first couple of times, but then after that, the dream, like you said, is to get to the point where you're not even really checking every 3 weeks. And then you're just checking 3 weeks just for fun because maybe things seem a little bit too quiet and you just want to make sure that things are rocking and rolling. And these are some really great ideas. These are things that everyone should look into, take action on, do it before you get distracted by something else, right? Take the leap, take the plunge, hire someone to go through one of those courses, to do something for you, and slowly build the trust and see where they end up. And so do you have any final parting words of advice for us, Mr. Lance? And do you have some websites, URLs for us to go to?
Yeah. First of all, like, believe in yourself enough to know that this could literally change your life. And I know that when I started doing this, when Robert started doing this, it felt weird. But what I promise you is that every time you look back at your life, if you felt weird or uncomfortable, you look back on that and go, what a blessing. I got a ton of growth out of that, no matter how hard that growing pain was. And this is the exact same way, but what a CEO or real business owner has to go through to learn to grow their business. So think of it in terms of that. And if you go to tamashiromarketing.com, there's a contact form there if you need any further information about hiring people, finding people, managing people, whatever it might be. You can go there and get in touch with me. And I hope that you really give this some thought, because this is something that, of all the things that I've done in my business over the last 10, almost 11 years now, this is my number one regret that I didn't do sooner. And this has been the number one thing that I would do different if I was starting over today. And third, this has been more than any product that we've put out, more than any other thing that we've done. This one thing I believe has changed my life more than anything else. And I believe that it will do the same for anybody that tries it.
That is a glowing endorsement. And I'm going to remember that forever. Weird equals good, right? Weird equals growth. And the place for everyone to go is TAMASHIRO. I hope I spelled that right. TamashiroMarketing.com. Go find that contact form and don't hesitate. Even if you don't even know what to ask Lance, just say, I heard you on the Marketer of the Day show. I like the episode. So few people do that. It takes 30 seconds out of your day. And if you do have a question, don't think it's a silly or a stupid question. We all got started somewhere. It's easy to think that we've always known the things that we know. Sometimes we didn't even know how to use the bathroom. We didn't know how to tie our shoes, take a walk. So even if you have a very beginner question about outsourcing, or maybe you even want some more detail about things that we skipped over, like maybe if you're specifically interested in Slack and you have a Slack question, whatever it is, beginner, advanced, go to TamashiroMarketing.com, go to that contact form, fill it out. Lance will respond to you. You will be glad you did. You will be one of those few people that actually takes the next step and takes some action. We will see you at tamashiromarketing.com. Thanks for showing up, Lance, and bye now.